Good afternoon. I'm Jasmine. Thank you for joining Once an Orphan. Joining me today is Mr. Andre, who, like myself, came through the foster care system and has quite a story to tell. Good afternoon, Andre. How are you?
Hello, I'm excellent.
Andre, on this podcast, we are talking to all people fostered, all people adopted, and what we just spoke about a moment ago. You have quite a story to tell. So, if you don't mind, I want you to take me back to your earlier years as an adolescent and what led up to you being placed in foster care.
Okay, so I was uh, I was actually placed in foster care at 18 months. So uh, my mother my mother actually gave me and my brother up, and the thing was that she was having mental illness. She had cancer at the time. She didn't even know, and so we were taken from her. She wasn't able to care for us, and the story goes that she was overwhelmed, and in that in that instance, like, we were given away. I heard a story that my dad made sure that I went to a Caribbean home. So I was in 7 different homes, most of them Caribbean homes, and 2 different group homes before the age of 7. And that was all over New York. I'm talking about Harlem, the Bronx, Brooklyn. I stayed in homes in Connecticut, but we were never separated. So I was my brother's protector the whole time. And that really shaped who I was. And I remember when I was young, the thing I used to pray for was my own bed, because my little brother used to sleep on my bed and pee on me. And so I used to pray that in those houses that I would have my own bed and have a mom. Those were the 2 things that I wanted. I wanted like, to be cared for by a woman. And so as we bounced through these homes, I was in a lot of abusive homes. I'm talking about physically abusive, where they would beat me. I was sexually molested at age 5, and that was at in a group home. And then my brother was asthmatic, and so I used to fight a lot of people just to protect him. And so that would get us kicked out of homes, and I would act out. So I was an angry kid and a defiant kid, but it was all coming from a good place. It was coming
Yeah.
from protecting ourselves from the environments that we were in. People would, like, not feed me because when they would beat me, I didn't really have I didn't give them any response. And,
You
like,
had that tough
not giving them
skin.
a response used to make them even madder. And I used to be like, okay. So that was my get back while I was getting beat in those places. And I remember this one social worker. She looked at me in my eyes and she was like, I know you're a strong young man. And she was like, stay strong for your brother. And I was like, in my head, I'm already doing it. You have no idea, miss. Like, so that was kind of the outlook that I had. And so when I got adopted by this beautiful, loving Caribbean woman who came from Guyana, South America, I didn't trust her. I was full of shame.
Mm.
I was full of anger. I was full of, why would anybody care about me or like me or nurture me? Nobody's ever done it before. Where you coming from? I was in the middle of the cocaine era. This was when, like, cocaine vials used to rain down the drains when it rained, all different colors, and us kids used to count them.
Blue, red, yellow.
Red,
You talking
yellow,
about the
green,
baskets?
blues, whites. Yep. We used to collect them and count them. And so, like, in that type of environment, I seen my first dead body when I was 10, right? This lady comes offering me all this love, offering all this beauty. I didn't know how to take it. So I put her through some things, but she was tougher than me. she, she put me in my place. She let me
Good.
talk. She wasn't abusive, but boy, could she talk to some stuff. And I was intelligent, so I was still making grades in this time. But she used to say
Hmm.
some things that used to ring in my head after we had the conversation. And one of those things was, she used to always say, if you don't have any vision, then you're going to perish. And that was her having raised 22 foster youth, and most of them men, like boys. My mother actually raised
Really?
27 kids, and she only adopted 4, and I was one of the 4 that was adopted. She's an
Yeah,
angel.
absolutely. Yeah. Well, so when you go back to your years as an adolescent, and I mean, and I want to go back to you being sexually molested. I mean, this happened in a group home. Was there anyone that you could tell, like, hey, I'm not safe here? This happened to me. Was there anyone you could talk to?
So there, at the group home, there probably was, but there was like no one who I saw and trusted. So I had a real big issue with trust because all of the grown-ups in my life had abandoned me at some point. My mom abandoned me. My dad abandoned me. All of the foster homes, they would give us up over and over and over again. So it was tons of abandonment. And in that chaos, there was nobody who I was like, yo, this happened, this was wrong, and I could confide in. You know, it was a guy who was way older than us. Like he was like aging out, like around that era, and I was a little kid. So there was nobody I could talk to. I didn't speak to anybody about this ever until I was like 21 in college, and I was putting
So,
myself through college, running my own business, paying all my own bills.
yeah, and that's a lot, even for a 21-year-old. You know, that's a whole lot to even fund your college, degree and put yourself through college. And it's so crazy because I had this talk with Lori Gerald last week, or was it Eugenia Doreen Wallace, and the question was asked, who had that talk with you when you were being placed from one home to another? Was there anyone who came and said, "Hey, Dre, we have to, take you and your brother now because of X, Y, and Z"? So you were aware of the circumstances behind why you were moved from home to home each time you were removed, because this was a lot that happened even before you turned 8 years old, right?
Yeah. So, now I study stuff like behavioral psychology. I have a background in self leadership, and I have a background in doing different behavioral changes and helping people transform their minds, their bodies, and their souls. And I look back and I say that there wasn't really any bridges that were given to me as a kid, saying, "Oh, your whole life is gonna change. Like we're going." Maybe the social worker said something in a little bit, like a couple of words, and then moved us on. And but I remember it being very abrupt every single placement. And I remember there being 2 social workers that cared about that transition for me and my brother. One was a Spanish lady, and one was this like a black woman, maybe in her 40s or so. She was very kind, and she didn't let the job get to her. And I remember her one time saying, "You know what? This home was probably going to be the home for you, but something happened outside of this lady's life that made her not able to have y'all anymore." And so for the first time when she said that to me, it wasn't my fault that we were getting yanked out of the house. And I felt like, oh, this is like, it was bad because she was a really beautiful person. And I'm a person
Yeah.
who is empathetic. I've been super empathetic since a kid. I could feel people's energies. I could sum up rooms and tables. All my friends come to me to ask about their women because I know the energies. I had to have that ability to suss out my whole environment from a survival standpoint.
Right.
So I know people. I know human beings. And this is why I've been successful in my career, right? This is why I've written all these books and why I've traveled the world and worked with all these different Fortune 500 companies and creating change in all of these organizations and all of these humans. It's because I've been exposed to thousands of people
Right.
in,
And
in
and
my in
that
my life,
and
in
that
my young
came after
life.
in your young life. But that came when your mother took you and nurtured you and loved you and did all of those things, right? Because
Yeah.
she's a
But
huge factor in who you. or was this before?
This was even before I could suss out any human, like negative or positive. I could feel the energy of it before that.
Wow.
I knew when something was going to go left before. And also, this was something that a lot of the drug dealers on the block used to have as well. So they used to have us around when they were talking like money and moving stuff, moving different stuff. And like
Right.
you would see when the situation was going to get bad, and I'm by the door trying to run out. And they would always have a bunch of little kids there because the little kids were going to be the ones scurrying around with these little packages all over the place. So, like in our book bag, because we didn't get stopped and frisked as much as the bigger kids did. So,
Right.
but we
And
still
all
got
of this
stopped and frisked,
happened.
but just not as much.
And all of this happened when you were young. So the men in your life and the men who sort of groomed you weren't necessarily the best role models, but they were there and they were present. Am I right when I say that?
Even they were sporadic because my mom was a good Christian woman who adopted me at 8. So my teen years, she used to keep us from that.
Yeah.
And when I was 14, she took us out of Bedford-Stuyvesant, Brooklyn, and moved us to Spotswood, which was a lily white community on the other side of the bridge in New Jersey. I was the only black person for miles. And so I went from 4th and 5th edition torn up textbooks to brand new books.
Right.
I went from running around and with glass inside of our play yard to swinging golf clubs and throwing javelins.
So you at a young age, you were experiencing the best of both worlds. And I know being in that new environment, you had to be shocked. What is this? Are we supposed to be here? I mean, that had to come with a lot of shock, really.
My whole entire life, I didn't feel like I belonged. And so when I went to that environment at age 14, getting ready to start 9th grade, I felt like I didn't belong again. It was the
So
first.
now, but by this age, you were adopted. But so, you've gotten over your rebellious stage because I would imagine that being removed from this environment to this environment, being the first of its kind, so to speak, that will cause some sort of rebellion. Were you not rebellious at this age, or were you fine and
Oh,
good with
yeah.
mom?
I didn't let my guard down until maybe I was 12 or 13 with my mom. Like, she had to prove for like 4 years that she wasn't foul, that she wasn't evil in her heart. So just because I had a place to now lay my head and it wasn't going to move, it didn't really change me that much in the beginning. The first 2 years of that placement were foster care placement. And I knew once I was in foster care, there was no permanence whatsoever. Then we got adopted. And when that adoption happened, I had a piece of paper, but that paper didn't mean nothing to a kid. So I was like, let me see how your actions are going to be. So I was testing my mom the whole time. And she passed with flying colors. Up to this day, there hasn't been anything she's ever said and not did. And so
Yeah,
I got that level of integrity from her in my
that's why
business dealings.
it's so awesome because she obviously groomed a young man who probably wasn't even ready to be groomed. She loved a young man who wasn't ready to be loved because you hadn't felt it before. She was able to
Yep,
nurture
hadn't
a
felt
young
it.
man. Yeah, she was able to nurture that young man, and by the time she got over those rocky periods, she obviously understood where you were emotionally, where you were mentally, where you were physically, and all of these things, and said, "Okay, he'll be okay. I'm gonna love him regardless." And so it's so awesome when you actually get that because my mom was the same way, and she still is. So it's just so awesome because now you're able to speak on this issue that most don't necessarily speak of. Why do you think it's so important that you speak on this matter? Like, why do you think it's so important that you not hold and carry the shame and embarrassment?
Yep. So for me, it's about being a voice of what happens to so many men And so many of us don't even talk about it. We're the emotional intelligence that I've been able to grow and to garner over the years. Like the first seeds were planted by my mom, and then like me, I always wanted to become a better version of myself because my environment was ugly. So if my environment is ugly, I was like, I can't be an ugly, undeveloped person too. Like something got to be bright. So I was like, if the brightness is going to be me, it's going to be me. And so like from age like 14 to 20, and this was when I was in the military too. I went into the military at age 17. So you got to think, I only was with my mom for like nine years total. And then I went into the military. But during that time, I was developing myself. In the developing of myself, that was reading
Wow.
5 to 10 books a month. That's how I developed myself. It was books and working out. And then you really get to know yourself. So it was important for me to develop myself so then I can go ahead and give something to other people who are going through my situation. Give them pointers, give them tips, give them stuff, but from a place of experience, not from a place of just theory.
Right.
So I lived the principles that I absorbed in the books. I lived the knowledge of self that I was learning by putting myself through hard physical labor. Training my body led to me having a 27-year career working with everybody from celebrities to presidents of corporations, all kinds of stuff. I've traveled the world. I've been all over the place. I'm talking about London, as far as over there, and then South America, Central America. I've been everywhere with this craft. Wow. So me helping people transform their bodies and then eventually their minds, and then eventually the spiritual stains, because the spiritual stains that we have, the traumas that we have, are the things that lead to us carrying around an extra 40 pounds that eventually kills us. And it makes us unable to take the action.
Now, I know Atlanta is nothing like London, but I'm going to need you to make your next stop here in Atlanta, okay? Help me get this thing right because I could use some help, but go ahead.
Yeah, so, physically training people all over the place. Working with sports teams and corporations and, basically getting what I want to get paid. Like, it helped me craft a life. Yeah. A crazy life where I'm blessed to have 3-year-old twins now. And I knew that for me, I wasn't going to pass my traumas on to my children. I was going to be well adjusted as possible, because no man is a success if that man hands his traumas and his pains down to his children. Why not let them? Life is hard enough. Why not let them form their own?
So
right? So the buck stopped with me. Right. I was the 4th generation man who never had a father in my family. My son is the first kid to have a dad present in his life. And I changed my last name in 2019 to set that legacy and to set that energy off, because I carried 4 last names that were not mine. And I never met the man, and the man never did nothing to me. Nothing to me or for me. So all of those last names I got rid of, and I took my maiden name and my wife's maiden name and put them together, and that's why my last name is Van Lun now.
Oh my God. So hold on. So you never met your biological father?
Never met him. I invited it in 2015. I was getting married. So I'll tell the first story of how I spoke to him like 4 times. The first time I spoke to him, I was 29. I was in a conference. This conference was called the Curriculum for Living. And it was by Landmark Education, personal development. It's for removal of trauma. Deep, powerful. I recommend it. And in that, there was a challenge to do something that was greatly fearful for you, that could have a great outcome. So it was basically run into your fear. So previously, I had met my mom. I met my mom when I was 17. That's a whole nother story.
Yeah.
Met her for the first time. And she gives me his address and his number, and I held it from 17 to 29. I ain't
Oh
do
my
nothing with
God.
it. Never had a man in my life. I don't need one now. So the biggest fearful thing I could think of was getting on the phone and calling this guy. So I did it on a lunch break at this conference. And I call him up and I'm like, hey, my name is Andre and yours is too. And he says, yeah. Same voice, same diction, same tone, same everything, just like me. Never heard
Wow.
anybody sound so much like me.
Yeah.
He says, yeah, I know exactly who you are. And then I was like, my mom is Marguerite. And he was like, yeah. He was like, I was married at the time. I came to New York. I was there for like 6 months. We had a good time. We fell in love. So don't think that you weren't made out of love. You were made out of love. And I can't talk to you right now. I'll talk to you another time. That's because his wife had entered the room. So my dad was a handsome playboy. I've seen pictures of him. Beautiful man. Like, and my mother was attracted to him. She was a roundaway city girl from Barbados. He's from St. Thomas, and that island connection connected, and that's how I got made. And I'm the one of one. I'm the one of one. No full brothers or full sisters.
Yeah.
And so this is what a man does. They validate you. That's the
Yeah.
first person to ever validate you and let you know you're valued and of worth
Yeah.
and that you belong. That happened to me at age 29. And up until then, I was rocking with a chip on my shoulder,
Yeah.
angry at the world, proving myself that I'm good, I'm great, I'm excellent. I'm good, I'm great, I'm excellent. That was my fuel. And I got accolades, won awards, traveled the world, made tons of money, been on TV a bunch of times, all of that. All because I'm good, I'm great, I'm worth something. I'm good, I'm great, I'm worth something. And that was the thing in my head pushing me along. And that day I could feel that turn off. I
Yeah.
probably got another like 5 or 10 years added to my life, and because I was validated by the man who put me out.
Did he ever tell his wife about you and what happened
Never.
back in the he
Never.
wait, not even to this day?
Not even to this day, because he died November of 2015.
Okay.
And that was, I got married December 2015. I was going to invite him to the wedding. Actually, before the wedding, I was going to drive down to North Carolina where he was and just show up on his doorstep and be like, yo, don't we look alike?
That is so then in that time frame, that time period, what kept you guys from reconnecting physically? Like or was it could it have been his wife? It sounds like there's what am I
Well,
going to tell
he
you?
had to do it in a way that it wouldn't come out because he was
Oh,
still trying to keep up this ruse the whole time. So it's wild because he would make these times to meet me and miss the times on purpose. So every time it was like a little rejection, a little rejection, a little rejection. He did that like 3 times to me. And then one time he had a stroke. And so I said, tell me about the medical situation that you have, because is this something that I'm going to look forward to? He was like,
right.
nah, it's not anything you have to worry about because I've been smoking cigarettes for like 44 years. So he was like, yeah, we have good machinery, but I just messed it up. And I was
Wow.
like, okay, good. That was the
Really?
last time I spoke to him, was after his stroke. And you know what? The little boy in me still wanted to forgive him for everything that I've
Of
been through.
course.
All the
Of course.
abuse.
It's always like that because at a time where you're young and you know you're being fostered and you're dealing with abuse from every angle, mental abuse, physical abuse, the other abuse, you probably want to know where are the people who's supposed to be here for me. Like, were
Yep.
you ever upset with them? Because I
Yep.
mean,
Where
yeah,
are the people?
yeah, that is, and then so
And
if
the
I go
fact of the
back,
matter was that he was in North Carolina raising his family. And he had lied to my mom about it. My mom didn't find out the man was married until after I was born.
Didn't Biggie mother go through that? I think Biggie's mom. Yeah.
Yep.
That is just,
And I happen to be from Brooklyn, right?
yeah. That is so crazy to me. So he an island man, right?
Caribbean men, boy, I tell
Yeah.
you, they just
So he wanted you to have that Caribbean upbringing. It sounds like, right? Because,
in the
but
church,
in the
all
church,
stiff and
right? But
rigid.
yeah. So, but he couldn't sit his wife down and say, "Hey, this happened back in the '70s, and I think you should know." Like, at what? So now you've reconnected with him, you're still that young little boy, even though you're an adult now. You're in your late 20s and so forth. Did you ever feel, even to this day, like any anger toward him? Any?
Now I forgave him.
Yeah.
I had to forgive him for me.
Yeah.
So there were so many reasons I should have been angry, right? But I had to forgive him in order to move forward, in order to be the best version of myself.
And this all came with your mental healing, your spiritual
All
healing,
of the
your
personal
physical, all of
development,
that. And so
going to the
my
conferences, hiring the mentors, the coaches. They were like, "Hey, Dre, you're not going to grow this business if you carry this resentment and frustration." And these were white men who were multimillionaires
sewing
telling
into
me,
you.
"You're just too angry to win."
So they're sewing into you in ways that you
Yes.
probably couldn't even understand. And
Ex-
and these are men who don't look like you. So opposed to the ones who did look like you, who couldn't be that example, you have your counterparts who don't look like you, who's saying, "Dre, you can do this, but you
Yep, you
need."
gotta let this go. You gotta let the anger go. And I had one mentor sat me down and he was like, "You know why? You're not gonna trust these people to do their work, the customer service team to do their work. You're gonna get on the phones, you're gonna start doing customer service. You're the CEO. Boom. You're not gonna trust the marketing people to go ahead and do their thing because you are angry and you gotta do everything." And he's like, "So then you're gonna be drawn thin, and then the company has no vision, and companies without vision fall apart within the first 5 years."
Wow.
And
And it's not, and in the first 5 years is when the company is supposed to grow. But they're telling you the
yes.
first 5 years is going to fall apart unless you take these steps to heal.
Yep. So
And so,
I was like, I ain't losing
right,
because in my world I don't lose.
right,
I might take a loss, but I
right. You
learn
might
from the loss.
learn.
I adapt and
Yeah.
I go. That's just me,
So,
and it's always only been me. It's never been anybody else by my side.
so what was the relationship like with your mom? Like when you met her at 17
Yep.
years old?
So my mom was a beautiful, loving soul, and she always said, "I'm going to I'm going to get my boys back. I'm going to get my boys back." That's what she said, she always said. And the reason I know is because I have a half sister that I didn't even know I had until I met my mom. Because those two used to hang out, my half sister and my mom.
Wow,
So I
really?
was 17. I had multiple football scholarships to go play for places like Princeton and UConn and Harvard because I had a 3.8 GPA and I could ball, right?
Right.
So I'm used to handling tremendous amounts of work
Right.
because my life was a tremendous amount of work.
Exactly.
It was never
That's work that
peaceful,
goes into
calm.
that. Yeah.
No, it was always something going on. So I'm able to handle the workload and play football and work a job and make money. Like I was doing all this stuff. 17, I come in and my mom, who's my adopted mom, hands me the phone and say, "Hey, talk to your mother." My eyes
That's
get
not how it
big.
happened. That's not how it happened.
My
That's
heart
not how it
stopped. I
happened.
was like, "Boo."
Are you for real?
So I sat down. It felt like a sharp, sharp kick to the chest. And I say hello. And this lady says, "Hey Andre, how you doing?" And it's like the most velvet voice. Something in my soul knew that it was my mom. It just linked
It's
with all
real.
the cells in my DNA. Like you know when somebody's your mom or your dad.
Same. I went through it. Yeah.
Yes. And this just put me in such a place of humility. So imagine this big muscular boy
Right.
just came out of football full of vim and vigor getting humbled. It just curled up and I was a little boy again. So she says, "You're about 6 foot. You're brown skin. Did your beard come in yet? You do well with the ladies, don't you?" Such and such. She start just breaking the boy down. Never saw me. Never saw me. She was like, "You have your grandfather's head shape." Like, and I was like, "What?" I'm on the phone looking at the phone like, "What?" So she introduced herself to me like that, and I was 17. And then by the time I was 19, we talked, and I was just like, so, like, yo, we got to meet.
Yeah.
And so I set up the meeting, and then my mother was like, "Okay, we'll set up the meeting, and I'll take you out." This is my adoptive mother. And so I went to Grand Central to meet her for the first time. And I didn't have a car at that time, so everything was just trains. So I was living in Jersey, and I was scheduled to go to the military the next, like in 4 days, so less than a week away. And I go to Grand Central, and I meet her, and it was like a big puzzle piece. I saw where my mouth comes from, my lips
Wow.
come from, my eyes, how they're almond shaped eyes, how all of that. My complexion is like that much off of her complexion. So she was like, "Oh, you think you look like me? Wait till you see your dad. You are your dad, 100%." So this is why I really wanted to meet him, but I never got a chance to. But I saw the pictures and I was like, "Oh." And my wife sees the pictures and she's like, "Mm-hmm."
Right.
she,
Yeah. That's
she
the
was
daddy.
like, "He was a bad man," right? That's what she said. But anyway, I meet my mom. She's loving. She's caring. She says, "Don't think that you were never not thought of. Don't think that you were never not loved. You were. It was from afar. Come to find out, when I hugged her for the first time, I felt like maybe like something foreign pressing on my chest when I give her, because I give hard hugs, right? I don't halfway hug people, or else I'm not gonna hug you at all. I don't want to do it.
Right.
So I gave her a real hug, and I felt something hard, like when I was hugging her, but I thought maybe it was like her headphones or something. So because they were riding in trains, and New Yorkers have headphones, right? So
Yep.
me and my sister and my mom, we're sitting in a row, and we're all sitting with our thumbs crossed, ankles crossed, same exact posture, all three of us. My little sister is like 13, and I'm 17, and my mom is in her 40s. So, and she's telling me stories after stories after stories, and I used to write her because writing got through. I used to write her when I was like 12, 13, 14. She used to write me back, but I couldn't understand her writing because she writes so grand and beautiful,
Right. Right.
like calligraphy.
What cursive is this, Mama? Like, yeah.
Yeah, right? And so I used to be reading these things, and I was just like, I can't get all of it. So I'm going to just save it. So here she was telling me all the stories that were written in her letters. About how my dad, how they met, all this stuff. She was filling in so many blanks. And just by me knowing her, she filled in a lot of blanks. Her demeanor, she was a wild person. So here I am. I'm subdued, quiet, angry. Step on my shoes, we got a problem. And my mom is the life of the party. Just boom, full energy, full. The most self-expressed and free human I've ever met in my life. Big ball of energy. And I get like that, but I only get like that when I was drinking. And so if you know anybody who's been adopted or in foster, like we all have a vice of some sort. Something we
Of
go
course.
to and it ain't nationally healthy.
Yeah.
So even Me being this world-renowned fitness trainer, getting written up in Men's Health magazine shape, I'm drinking like every weekend.
Like,
But I still
really?
look great. I got a six-pack and I got my
You
dad's
can't
jeans,
tell
right?
from looking at it. Like, right?
So when she came back in my life, it was like this light came in my life. And then I turned 19 and she had stage 4 cancer, and that was the mass that was in her chest when she gave me the hug. It was so hard, and she died. Same exact year. So I only had her for like 18 months. And my heart was broken.
You are kidding
Broken.
me. Oh.
But I was like, man, chaos don't stop.
It doesn't, it's so cliche. We always say when it rains, it pours. That's actually true, from an emotional standpoint when you look at it, because it's like it just doesn't stop. So, I
It
mean,
do-
so now, Andre, what about your siblings, your half siblings that you have on
Yep.
either your maternal or your paternal side? Like, where are they? How is that going?
So check this out.
Uh-oh.
I got another. So my half sibling, my sister that I met, loving, beautiful relationship. She knows my kids.
Oh,
And I love her to death. She looks like me. We look like each other. We love each other. I mentor and coach her for free.
of course.
She's been in all of my programs, all my workshops, all my seminars. Love her. My brother Adam didn't get enough of my mom. Remember, I got 18 months I was breastfed, my mom said. But Adam didn't get none of that. Adam lives in the Bronx, maybe 5-10 minutes from where we were conceived. And he's a hermit, like, to himself. I haven't seen my brother. November's gonna make 10 years. I haven't seen him, but I talk to him on the phone from time to time. So he's not well adjusted with all the stuff that happened to us.
Oh my.
And the funny thing is, he didn't even get the brunt of it because I umbrellaed him from so much abuse and so much hurt. You know, and then here's the thing that happened 2017, 18. I'm on Facebook and I meet my half sister, my dad's daughter, on
Really?
Facebook. Actually, I meet her daughter, who's only a few years younger than me. And she says, oh, we have a last name that's unique, Van Putten, right? She says, Van Putten? You're Van Putten? Let me have your phone number. This is what the girl says. And
Hello?
I,
Are you really? What?
she says, hey, Mom, while we were on the phone. She says, Mom, I have your brother here on the phone. And her mom says, what? Which one? Because there's 4 of them. I got 4 brothers, and she's the baby girl who was kicked out of the house at 16 for being pregnant at the same exact time that my dad had me delivered right around the corner.
Oh my God. It's too much to unpack. What?
It's a lot.
Okay, go ahead. Oh my God.
So she doesn't believe it. She calls me maybe like 4 different times, asks me some questions, and then hangs up because I could tell it's very emotional for her. She's reliving 1978. She was like, there was this woman that my dad used to go and see. I followed him one time, and she's reliving this, and she's like, oh my God, I gotta go cook. And then she'll call me back, and then I'll fill in some more stuff, and then it was a series until eventually she was like, I can't believe this. I gotta do a blood test. So I was in New York in 2017, and I did the blood test, and it was 99.7% that we were brother and sister, that we were siblings. And then all the doubt went out. And then she said, well, I'm going to keep his secret because my mom is getting old and she might die if she hears this.
So that was going to be my next question. Like, after your father's passing, did anyone let her know? So is she still living? Is your father's wife?
Yep.
And she still
Father's
doesn't
wife
know.
is still living. The family knows nothing about me. She knows and her daughter knows, and that's it.
So this is where my problem with the foster care system lies, because I don't feel like children should suffer and not know their biological families because either this child was given up or because you decided to take the child or whatever the reason. These innocent children do not
Yep.
ask to be separated from their biological family. No child has ever said, please take me away from my family forever and give me the chance not to know them. No child has ever said that. Yeah, I just have an issue with that in the state of New York, mainly most states, but because we're natives, I can specifically speak to New York, the fact that they are allowing children to be separated.
Yep.
No one is making the mom step up. No one is making the dad step up. No one is making sure the mom has the help and the resources that she needs to be there for her child. Because, I mean, you have to have wondered at some point in time, what would my life have been like if my mom didn't suffer from these ailments, and if she was present. You have to have had that thought at some point in time, what life would have been like with your mom and dad. No?
Yeah, I have had that. I lived in that space for most of my childhood.
Yeah.
But it was as I began to learn about personal development, self mastery, and leadership of yourself, and how no matter what your circumstances were, human beings are greater than their circumstances.
Yes.
I started to believe that. And so a lot of the pain went away with that. Also, a lot of the pain went away with the fact that I had a consistent adult presence in my adoptive mom. Like, she was never not there if you asked her for anything. She would say no or figure it out. But it would be because she's a hard lady. She's a hard, tough lady. Like, she came to America with $2 in her pocket to be to clean Jewish homes up in the Upper East Side.
Yeah.
So that was her. She did that, and when I met her, she had like 3 homes, and I bought my first home at age 22 because of what she taught me.
Wow.
So I had, right out of the military, right out of college, I bought my own home. I bought a car fresh off the lot. I was making multiple 6 figures. So I can't say that my life would be better if I grew up in the South Bronx with my mom.
Right. Exactly.
Because I was a sponge and I needed some guidance, and it was most likely some guidance that she wouldn't have had for me.
Yeah.
But I learned grit, resilience.
Yeah.
I learned that immigrant work ethic.
Yeah. You got to have 5 jobs. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, I did have like 5 jobs. Remember that from In Living Color?
Of course I did. That's how I said.
I had so many jobs.
That is it's so crazy because, I can say the same thing. Like, I know my biological mother was just not able to provide what my parents gave me. No, no way she was able to provide that. And my adoptive parents were amazing. My father is deceased now. He passed away a little more than 20 years ago. Mom is still living. She's rocking. And, it's like knowing the upbringing that I had a very good upbringing. My biological mother wasn't able to provide that. But at the same time, I still feel like I should have known who she was. I mean,
Yeah.
I grew up in Long Island. Brooklyn is right on the other side of Queens.
Yep.
We're in Nassau County, so it's not like we were out there on the Hamptons or anything like that. We were literally
y'all
on the other
next
side
door.
of... Huh?
You were right next door.
You're right next door my whole life, and never knew the woman's name until right before I left New York.
Oh.
So, it was that thing that you kind of want to feel like, I wonder what it was like, but at the same time, I know she wasn't able to give me everything that I had. So, and to know that I still have siblings out there that I'm looking for, I'm like, the search continues. And I'm going to figure it out, because whoever is a Holland or a Franklin, somebody in y'all family is my daddy. So we're gonna figure this out together.
Wow.
We're gonna figure this out together because the search continues. But it's so crazy, Andre. Let me just ask this, because society has deemed it necessary to believe that African American men are not very forthcoming. They are not very transparent. They're not, they don't know how to show vulnerability. And listening to you talk, I have to ask, are you really a black man?
I I am, but that is one of my many identities. You know,
One of many, exactly.
one of many identities.
Exactly.
And I'm well aware that the odds that I defied. 1 in 3 of the men that look like me are gonna face imprisonment. 70 to 85% of fostered youth that have gone through what I've gone through make up the trafficked youth in America now. That's deep.
Yeah.
Only 3% to 4% of all kids have a college degree that grew up like I did.
Yeah.
I know that I'm very fortunate to have defied all of those odds, but I also know that the vision was given to me by a 5'1" immigrant woman who gave me the ability to have the vision. She
Yeah.
said, "Whatever ye without a vision shall perish,
Yeah.
and you didn't come here to die on me now."
Yeah.
And she's like, "I don't make bad investments." That's
Yeah.
how my mom talks. She's like,
Right.
"I don't make bad investments, and I invested in you and your brother and your 2 sisters." And she's like, "I don't make bad investments." And she was like, "Always blame any way to get out of trouble on her." She was like, because she knew that I was like affiliated with these groups, these gangs that were in the area, and she was like, "Tell them your mom said you can't be out at this time. Tell them your mom said you're not going to Bay Ridge.
Yeah.
Tell them your mom said you're not right."
Yeah.
And so she was that person. And so I speak to over 1,000 at-risk and foster youth a year as a mentor, so they could see somebody that looks like them
Yes. It's so
that
important.
has navigated those things. And I created a curriculum that I'm going to be giving away for free to all of the independent living skills programs all across the nation. And I'm going to make it so that these kids have access to not only hear my story, but I want it to be like, so what is the takeaway? How can this apply to your life type of deal?
Right. Have you ever asked your mom what was it that made her want to foster and adopt?
My mom has a big heart, even though she's New York kind.
Yeah.
My mom ain't nice. She
Right.
kind, right?
Right. There's a difference. Right.
She ain't gonna sit down and smile with you
Yeah.
and a whole bunch of. She kind though. She'll
Yeah.
help you, but it's something inside of her heart that is really big. And she was talking about fostering kids, and she's 78 right now. She was like, "I want to go through the process," and I'm like, "I don't know
Are you
about that."
serious? Oh my.
She's
My mom will be
78.
my mom will be 78 in August, and baby, that ship has sailed. She retired, I guess, like more than 20 years ago. She's like, I'm good, because and that's amazing for her to be 78 and she still wants to
I'm
like
trying to
just
get her to stop. Like we all trying to get her to stop and sit down. I
yeah,
think she's finally getting that picture because we were able to retire her. So,
good.
like, she's finally getting that stop and sit down type of deal. One of the things that is really has been important to her. She was actually one of the heads of the Children Aid Society. You know the Children Aid Society in
Yeah.
New York
Mhm.
that helps place the kids.
Yeah.
So she had a real affinity for abandoned children, and she raised some really hard kids. I'm talking about hard kids before me, like
Yeah.
hard boys that go in and out of jail constantly. And she was like, all it takes is one person that believes in them. They don't need much. And for me, it was that. I needed one person, and she was my one person. I didn't need 50 people. I needed one person to say, hey, you're here for a reason. Live the reason. I expect you to be great. All right, so go out there and kill it. That's what. That's how my mom was. She was
Right.
like
She
that.
just put it to you just like that, huh? Like, hey, this is what I
And
expect of you.
This is what I expect. She kept some high expectations. And then
Yeah.
here's the thing. She kept high expectations for herself.
Yeah.
She
And
was
she modeled that for you.
she modeled it.
Yeah. So you had no choice but to get out here. When they say monkey see, monkey do, it's like I'm
Yeah.
going to do what mommy does because mommy has set the example of being who she wants me to be. It's one thing where a parent can say, do as I say and not as I do. Well,
Yeah.
why would I do that? Why don't you model that for
Hmm.
me? And it sounds like your mom modeled that for you. And, it's like you feel like you're forever indebted to her, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I wrote her in because I've written 4 books now, and I wrote her into my last book called Focus on Better. And I went over her house. She didn't know I was coming, and that book was like in the center of her sewing room. My mom likes to sew. She's from that era. Like she
Yeah.
liked to make clothes and stuff.
Yeah.
And it was on her thing, and it was open, and I was like, "Dang!" I didn't even think she would have, like, it would have got lost somewhere
Oh,
because
wow.
my mom was like
No,
that.
that's
But
her
she had
baby.
a printed copy of my book, and
Wow.
that blew me
Wow.
away. And she got to
So
read the impact she did
you
in my
have to
life.
share all 4 of your books.
Hmm?
Go ahead. What are your
Huh?
books? Give us the titles
Oh
because we
yeah.
have to support.
All
Go
right.
ahead. We want the titles of the book.
So I have one called The Fitness Blueprint. That was the first one that I did, and that was how to create a fit body in a busy world. So that's on Amazon. That was written under my old last name, which was Farnell. And then, so I was making that Farnell guy very famous, by the way.
Go
Then I
ahead.
have an
I have another question,
entire,
Bobby. Go ahead.
yep, I have an entire 45 recipe book. It's all
Oh,
about
wow.
healthy eating because our nutrition is super important for our bodies and our brains to be able to function. A lot of people don't have the clarity of mind that they want to have because their nutrition is off. Your nutrition can be full of additives, preservatives, and other stuff that could knock off the clarity. So that's the 45 quick and tasty recipes. Then I have my latest book, which is called Focus on Better. Focus on Better is a leadership and self-mastery book in which I outline all of the exercises, frameworks, principles, and distinctions that expand people's minds. And then the third book, I haven't had that one published, but it's one that I give to my private clients.
Gotcha.
And that book is a book that is, I just call it the blueprint because it takes all the physical stuff, all the mental stuff, all the spiritual stuff, puts it all together, step by step ways to elevate your life from the mud to wherever you want it to be.
Yeah.
And, I have an online course on Udemy, which is a teaching platform. And that one is called The Fitness Blueprint as well. And that book, that is like, I think it's about 4 hours of coursework. And I've laid that out. And I'm working on my 5th book now, which is called 10 Stories. So it's 10 stories
Nice.
from my childhood, from my life, and the takeaways from those things and how they are applicable to other people's lives.
They are very, it's so funny because I shared this, I think, when I spoke with Lorraine Gerald last, but we all have a story. And I heard someone say some years ago, our stories aren't even for us. It's almost like our stories, while we have to live it, they are for other people to help them get through whatever it is that they, might be going through. Because while no one walked in Andre's shoes, Andre's still able to help people overcome fear, rejection, abandonment.
Yeah.
Even though they may have grown up in their biological family, but they still face those issues. And so even though our stories don't have to match, we find ourselves oftentimes carrying the same emotions that seemingly keeps us depressed and keeps us from growing up, as a person into who we're supposed to actually become. So with
Yep.
all of that, because I want to go back a bit, you said you had 4 last names. Whose names were they and why? Please.
First, I was Andre Jackson. That was the first one I could remember. That was a man that my mother, my biological mother, married after I was conceived. She said he was the only guy that ever married her. So it was important that all her kids have that last name. Then there was Van Putten, which is on my birth certificate, my original birth certificate last name. Then there's Jackson Farnell. Jackson Farnell, Farnell is my adoptive mother's ex-husband's last name. So that dude, I never even met him. Never even met him.
Okay.
Never even met him, and carried his name and wrote books under his name and been on TV with his name. The power of a last name is big. I wore all these names on my jerseys, by the way, on my football jerseys. Like, I'm a mascot for these kids, for these people, these men that ain't step up and do nothing. And then this last Van Lun is my current last name. And so now Van Lun is the name that I selected with my wife, that we co-created together. Mm-hmm. And it's the original name that was on my original birth certificate, because I have 2 birth certificates. It's Van Putten mixed with Lundy. And we took portions of each name to make Van Lun into a last name. Yep, I've also been Farnell alone too. So I've been Jackson Farnell, Van Putten, and now Van Lun.
And so now that having gone through all of that, you sort of feel a sense of having your own identity, right? Now that you go by Van Lun, that is Andre. You don't have to put Farnell on that. You don't have to put Van Putten. It's just Van Lun. That is who I identify as. That is who I am.
Yep.
That has to be a good feeling.
My whole entire bloodline changed.
Yeah.
On the January 9th, 2019. I remember it. It's all 9s. 9 is the number of completion. So that is very interesting how that lined up. I didn't even make that happen. But we created that last name, and then all the paperwork. It takes months and months of paperwork to get a last name changed in America.
Yep. Like
Social Security cards, all of that stuff. So we took the time. I hired the people. They did the work. And the Van Lun name was approved. It was announced in court. It's on all of my paperwork. My passport has it now. So my children were the first Van Luns.
Oh my! So
the firstborn Van Luns.
So important, because they don't have to go through what you went through. So they know coming up, I'm a Van Lun. That's it. I'm a part of mommy.
That's it.
I'm a part of daddy. This is who I am. They are there. They're taking care of me. Mm-hmm. I'm a Van Lun.
I'm a Van Lun.
You have a story. Like, no, really. Like, you know, to know that you've gone through so much, and I know we didn't even touch the surface of everything, but to know that what you shared with me, that is amazing to see who you are and what you've gone through, because the story could either go either way. You could come out as Andre Van Lun, or you can come out as Andre Van Putten or Andre Jackson still incarcerated, you know, mainly because of how everything started in the beginning. But it didn't turn out that way for you. You came out as Andre Van Lun. And there are so many young kids right now who I hope will see this and who I hope will say, no, I want to do what Andre Van Lun did, and who become who he's become without having to go through all of that, because it's too much. And it can break a child, you know, because they don't ask for this. You know, we don't ask for this. So much trauma. So much. And I wasn't even aware that how pre-verbal trauma works, you know, how being snatched and being taken away and being removed from your biological mom as an infant. Well, you can't express that anger and that fear. You could just cry it out, but then it's tucked in. And, you know, and what do you do with it at a certain point in life? You know, how does that come out at a certain point in life? And for you, therapy helped, right?
Therapy helped, exercise helped,
Mentorships.
mentorship, I paid thousands of dollars to get right mentally. Also, I went to a lot of conferences around personal development and growth. I face myself in the mirror a lot of times. I look in the mirror and I love who I see now. I didn't always. Um, I challenge. I always challenge myself to do something uncomfortable, mentally, spiritually, and physically. And every decade, I do something real crazy. So, my
Afraid
first,
to ask, but I have to ask, Andre.
so
So what's the
19
crazy thing?
jump. I jumped out of an airplane, perfectly fine airplane.
I'm not doing that.
I get when you do that for a period of time, you have no fear on the planet. Nothing, nothing
I'm
ain't
gonna
holding
have
you back.
my fear is gonna keep me from getting up on that one. Okay, so I ain't doing it. I can't do it. I can't do it. I'll let you know.
I ran a marathon,
A marathon. Okay.
26.2 miles without stopping.
Wow. Wow.
That was hard. I lost 7 toenails. It was hard. I'm
Mm,
not built for running like that. I'm
really?
215 pounds solid muscle, and that's not a good look for that kind of. So I lost 7 toenails. Body. I had a cold for like almost a year. My
What?
immune system backfired. I broke out in hives all over my body. And I actually told my wife, we were dating at the time, I said, hey, you can leave me because I ain't got nothing to give you. I'm just through. I was doing that. I was so sick
And
all
she
the time.
proved
I
you wrong. She
mashed
said,
up
"I'm
my
not
immune
leaving."
system.
That's a good woman.
Yeah, she stayed
Yeah.
with me.
Yep.
She
Wow.
stayed with me. And that was the number one thing that I learned about life. Who you
Yeah.
partner with is going to be huge for you.
Yeah. A fact.
So that's why
That's
I
a
don't
fact.
have any kids out of wedlock because I was a kid out of wedlock, and
Yep.
I didn't want to perpetuate what my dad did. My
Absolutely.
great grandfather did that, all the way down to me. So I
Yeah.
was all through college and high school. I was
That's
strict.
another commonality we share. So awesome. Like I have two by my husband. So, it's that it means so much. It means because you're showing your kids,
It's
you're
actually a
modeling the
transformation
life.
of legacy.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Going back to the last name, the legacy, all of that factors into who they will become, seeing daddy, seeing mommy,
Yeah.
knowing, having their own identity. I am a Van Lun. I'm not a this.
Yep.
I'm not a that. I am. So, I mean, I'm even congratulating you for even having the courage to do that and not feeling like you're separating yourself from your adoptive mom because of course she shaped you and she loved you and she gave you everything she could,
Yep.
but
I
so
asked
changing.
her how she
Oh,
felt
did
about
you?
it,
Yeah.
and
And she was okay with it.
she was a fan of it.
Really?
Yeah, she was a fan
Oh,
of it. She says, "I totally get it."
yeah. That is commendable. And she's
Yeah, yeah.
obviously
I tell you what, the only time I ever seen her bothered was when she met my mom, though.
really.
It was a different vibe going on.
Yeah.
It was the first time I seen her, like, like, it was, and my mother was like, big hug, like, thank you for
Yeah.
taking care of my boys. And
Yeah. Yeah.
my mother was like real reserved. And
Yeah.
I was like, okay, this could
Yeah.
be tough. I get it. There's a lot of spiritual stuff going on between
A
them two.
whole lot. A whole lot. And so you have me reflecting on what it was like for my adoptive and biological mother when they met.
They met?
Yeah. They
Wow.
met, and it wasn't even something that my biological mother wanted. It was just something that I felt like she needed. Like, you need to meet the woman who raised me, like at the very
Yes.
least. And so it was a cold day. Went to the diner in New York, and she was like, "Well, I'm coming. I'm getting on the train," and so forth and so on. And she kept mentioning that her sister was going to come. My sister is going to come. My is going to come. And I finally just thought, okay, well then, if she's coming, my mother's coming too. And, she was thankful for what my mom did and, things like that. But it wasn't like I really couldn't tell you exactly how my mom felt. She was like, well, you definitely act like mom. She could see our, similarities in our
Yeah.
personalities, like that. So she knew it. But, I don't really know to this day how she really, really,
Wow,
really,
how she received it. Yeah.
yeah, exactly, exactly. So, but nonetheless, they did meet, and like I said, my search continues for my fraternity. So
Yeah.
I don't know, and those holes and those pieces, those things that you want to put together, they absolutely matter, and
They do matter.
they do. They definitely matter. Like you said earlier, you're walking in places and wondering, could that be my dad? Could that be my mom? Could that
Yeah.
be, that was me growing up. I'm like, And
Yeah.
then when I finally met my biological mother, I saw our physical similarities. I'm like, okay, I see the resemblance. And it still didn't quite close the chapter. The books.
Right.
So it continues, but it's not over until it's over. So I'll just keep working. Andre, listen, what time is it? We're going to talk about this some more. Please tell me you'll have time to join me again so that we can bring more attention to this and so that we can
Absolutely.
talk about your books and everything that you're working on. Go ahead and let us share your handles with us on Instagram so that we can follow you.
So I'm at Dre Van Lun. At Dre Van Lun. Everywhere.
Everywhere.
Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, all of that.
Everywhere.
That's my last book.
Yes.
Yep.
Focus on better. So ladies and gentlemen, and whoever is listening, I have to say, since I started following this brother, he has provided some very good information to help you feel whole. So everything that he's talked to us about here, he's not just preaching to the choir. He's actually throwing out some real gems so that we can get to a point, while all of our stories may be different, at some point in time we may have felt neglected, abandoned, lonely, all of those feelings, and we have seemingly suppressed them, threw them away, and pretended that they don't exist when they do. So this brother here is not just telling us to do something that he doesn't practice. He's on Instagram. He's showing us how he is physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, and all of those things that makes us whole. So if you're feeling strong physically and you're not strong mentally or emotionally, you're still not whole. And it's important for us to have all of those things so that we can grow into fruition and be what it is that we're supposed to be. Because if even one of those components are not there, we lose the race. And it's not for us to lose. We can learn, but it's not for us to lose. So, Brother Andre, I thank you so much for your time. I am going to make sure I add your book to my page and do all of those things. But I am so thankful for you joining me today. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.